greetings is they're the greatest icebreakers when there are strangers. If you happen to walk on a street in a neighborhood where your kind is the only one and everyone else is all white, all black, all Asian, Mexican neighborhood, you feel tenseness when you walk through that neighborhood. All of a sudden, if someone says hi to you, you feel relaxed, you feel relieved, you feel comfortable. That is the power of greeting. Greetings has got three essential components. One is acknowledging the stranger. Number two, welcoming them. And third is a possibility of developing a friendship with them. So those three components are built into every religious greetings. All religions have built that greeting. So when we say the Hindu greeting, what we are saying in broad terms, let the good in you connect with the good in me. When we say salam, shalom, peace, sat sri akal, or any other greetings, what we are saying is, may you be showered and drenched and soaked in peace. The idea is these greetings build goodwill among people. When you meet somebody, it breaks the ice. So I'm going to share some greetings from different faiths, and I will say the name of the faith and then the greetings. You are welcome to repeat after me in a chorus, loudly, quietly. The Native American greetings, aho piva. The atheist greeting, hi. The Baha'i greeting, Allah Abho. The Buddhist greeting, Buddha Namo. The Christian greeting, peace to you. The Hindu greeting, Namaste. The Dalit greeting, Jai Bhim. Then the Jain greeting, Jai Jinendra. Then the Jewish greeting, Shalom. The Sikh greeting, Sat Sri Akal. Then you got the earth-based traditions like Wicca and the other traditions, Hail to Mother Earth. And the Zoroastrian greeting, you have to listen to this one. Hamazor, Hama Ashobed. All these greetings bring goodwill to people. And that's what the greetings is about. Someday, I hope, we can use this as synonyms. You can say me namaste, shalom, sat sri akal, anything, they all mean the same. If I say namaste, I don't become a Hindu. If I say salam alaikum, I don't become a Muslim. When you translate these greetings, these are pure goodwill greetings. And I thank you very much for joining us tonight. And we have a great program. And the purpose of this event is very simple, to educate. For nearly 50 or 60 years, Holocaust was commemorated as Yom HaShoah at the synagogues. We want to say to all those people who have endured Holocaust, genocides, massacres, rapes, injustice, all those things, we want to tell each one of them that we are all with you. You are not alone in your sufferings. And in the last 14 years, we have covered over 30 different genocides and massacres. And this is quite a big one. And in the coming years, we'll cover as many as we can. But it is all-inclusive program. Nobody is excluded from this program. I want to welcome Rabia Beg. She is a great youth. I see a bright future for her, and hopefully involved in the politics of the nation or whatever she aspires to.
What we need to do is strip our minds of this mentality of others. These are not other people. These are our people that we're talking about. This is something I've learned from Mr. Mike. And he says that once you strip away the social, the political, the gender, all the labeling, all the stereotypes, when you take all of that away, we're all human. And pain, all human pain is the same. All families, all love, all emotions, all hurt, that's all the same. These are our people that we're here to listen about. And, I don't want to take any time away because I am so humbled that people have really come from far. They've traveled to be here. And this is because this message is important for them to share. So all I ask for you tonight is to feel their message like it's our own. Just like the way they're feeling it, just like the way they've experienced it. And the first person that we have tonight, actually, who is going to be our speaker, is Mr. Robert Teitel. And he is a Holocaust survivor. Mr. Teitel was an orphan child Holocaust survivor born in Amsterdam, Holland in 1941 under Nazi occupation.
My grandparents migrated from what is now southern Poland to Prague, then to Vienna, and finally to Den Haag, Holland, in the middle of World War I. Let me emphasize that. In the middle of World War I, they traveled from Poland to Holland with 3 small children. They arrive in Holland in 1916. This is their registration card in Den Haag from 1916. Holland's a very small country, about the size of Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts combined. And a small part of Holland, about the size of the metropolitan Washington area, contains most of the major cities in Holland, and almost all events of the Teitel family occur within that small area. From Palestine back to Holland, some brief happy news. I'm born. In June of 1942, my father is arrested by the Nazis. He is subsequently transferred to Westerbork, which was the main Nazi transit camp in Holland. At the bottom is a post-war listing of persons ever held in Westerbork, including my father. And the annotation to the right of his entry says that he is to be sent to Mauthausen, a camp in Austria. Top left is my father's Mauthausen registration record. To the right is his Mauthausen death record. He was executed the day he arrived in Mauthausen, 23 October 1942. In January of 1943, Joseph, my father's brother, and of course my uncle, is detained in the town of Apeldoorn, where he lived. At the top is his detention record. At the bottom is again the post-war listing of persons ever in Westerbork. I hope you've noticed that both Joseph and my father were in Westerbork, but not at the same time. While arranging for their own legal immigration to the United States, my grandparents did not forget me. Recall, I'm living in an orphanage in Amsterdam. My grandparents convinced Representative Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a gentleman with a good name in 1950, to introduce a bill in the Congress of the United States, quote, to authorize the admission to the United States of Robert F. Teitel, a minor. After becoming citizens of the United States, my grandparents once again get a bill introduced in the Congress of the United States. This time to get back their forfeited $1,000 bond. $1,000 was a lot of money in those days. And here we have the summary up to 2000. My grandfather dies in March of '59, unfortunately, just a couple of months after I become a citizen. And my grandmother, Arthur, and Judith die over the next few decades. And I'm living in Chevy Chase as of 2000.
Thank you for attending an event that's really informative. As she said, I just came back from not only Netherlands, but Den Haag. I was there 2 days ago. So on the Rohingya genocide case. Gambia has requested the court to rule on 6 provisional measures to be ruled by the court in the meantime, because the case of genocide may last for a while, for maybe 1 or 2, 3 years, but we need a provisional ruling. And that was requested, and it was granted by the court with 17, unanimously by 17 judges. One very interesting in this 17 judges unanimous ruling is that one of the 17 judges is the ad hoc judge from the Myanmar side, the Burmese side. Burmese has given an ad hoc, appointed, requested an ad hoc judge. That judge also ruled in favor of these provisional measures, which Myanmar government has objected at the hearing a couple of weeks ago, a month ago. not to give the provisional ruling. And the court has given provisional ruling with the support of their ad hoc judge. So that's dramatic to me. What is Rohingya crisis? Genocide. What is it? This is really a highly sophisticated, systemic and systematic scheme to remove a population from their homeland, elimination of population from their homeland. Why is this happening? Why do they want to do that? Really, you look at the history book in the World War II, Germany, a very similar concept. The rapidly growing nationalist, I should say ultra-nationalist ideology of purity of race and religion in a Buddhist-dominated Burmese society, particularly the military, Burmese military, purity of race and religion. They want to be pure. They don't want anybody else to be there if they are different from them. How do they do that? There's a series of violations, human rights violations, a lot of different violations, religious violations, and not only violations, but also violence through all possible means, pre-calculated for the destruction of the population. That will come all with the Den Haag, the Hague case. So Myanmar, Burma, has signed the Genocide Convention of 1948. It's a country of signatory to the convention, Genocide Convention. So when you look at the articles of Genocide Convention, there are many articles, and Burma has violated several articles of the Genocide Convention, which it did not abide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a few slides, highlights from the ground that pertains to genocide case and the violations of the genocide, the act and crime of genocide. But please, it's a difficult thing I'm to say this. Forgive me if there's one or two graphic slides, because information is very important. If we cannot show you the graphic slides, how can we deliver the message effectively? So I will be quick, because it may be a little disturbing, but that's what's happening. Let's think this way. If we cannot watch this slide, how about those people who are going through that? So let's put ourselves in their place. So one pertaining slide is the citizenship of Rohingya. They are the citizen of Burma, period. This is the documentation. Rohingya people has been citizen of Burma since the constitution was adopted and enforced in 1947, 1 year before country got independence. According to the constitution, they are given citizenship like any other ethnic minority in Burma by the government of Burma. Burma, this is the evidence of their citizenship. Not just their citizenship, their ethnicity. Historic document one I will show you. Here you will see 1799. Francis Buchanan wrote this book, the name Rohingya. They are a little different spelling than Rohingya, that's basically Rohingya. That Burmese government now denies that there's no Rohingya in Burma. Burmese government denies that. There's very ethnic identity related to this case. Destruction of Rohingya heritage. That's the act of genocide according to the Article 2 of Genocide Convention. This is a prehistoric 14th century mosque in Burma, in Rakhine State, in land of Rohingya, be under destruction. They're destroying this, removing the evidence of this population and living in that a part of the country for many centuries. Destruction of Rohingya villages. This you can see the houses here, housings, they're settlement. This is Rohingya land. The Rohingya land are confiscated and brought in their own people, their own religious, Buddhist villages from other part of the country, and settlement, that replacement of a population with another population, ethnic group with another ethnic group. There's the violence against Rohingya. There's Article 3 that pertains to Article 3 of the Genocide Convention, conspiracy of the Myanmar government to destroy Rohingya, to eliminate the population. You cannot see very clearly. You see here, there's police. There's a written police here. The police force and the vigilantes, mobs, and militia. A militia created by the government of Burma to attack Rohingya, and then police forces, military, different armed forces, security forces, with mobs and vigilantes and militia attacking the villages, setting the fire. These are part of the documentation. Myanmar military, the army, went to Rohingya villages, civilian villages, you see, pouring the gasoline and setting the fire on attacking the civilian population. That's also violation of the Geneva Convention. Destruction of religious structures. There's a mosque, you can see atrocities. They even will not leave the women and children alone. They have abuse and atrocities. Leads to rapes and gang rapes, and these women become a victim of rapes and gang rapes, and then even children, this 11-year-old kid. The police, the paramilitary police will round up Rohingya villagers, children at little as 5 years, women, you can see women, men, elderly, they will not leave anyone. They will round them up, and physical abuse, atrocities, killing, mass killing, all taking place. These are the civilian population, basically agrarian society, the farmers. You have seen, heard this news. The writers, 2 journalists were arrested by government of Burma, and then there have been a lot of international upheaval about this. This is what they have reported. Villagers, farmers were rounded up, and next, just as a warning, gentle warning, next slide will be a little graphic. And these villagers, these rounding up people, farmers, and mass execution and killing. And that's what the first picture you saw, that kill them and dump them in the they make a grave, mass grave down there. You can see blue to blue, red, and so on and so forth. These here, they killed them brutally. And this was reported by Reuters. And that's why our international community went crazy, a bazooka on this issue. Arbitrary arrest and extrajudicial killing. These mass graves. This mass grave here, Myanmar military. So one of the provisional measures that Gambia has requested was requiring Myanmar government, Burmese government, not to destroy evidence of these atrocities, mass killing, and genocidal crimes. So that's mass grave. So Myanmar government continues to manipulate, continues to tamper with the evidence, a lot of evidences, and then they will not let international community. We have United Nations Commission of Inquiry mission. They were not allowed to enter Rakhine State so that they will find these evidences. This is the tampering of the evidence. Systematic, very systematic, strategic, it's well-planned attack on civilian population. This is only 288 villages were removed. That's between August 25th and September 25th, 1 month. But it went far beyond September 25th. So, so finally it was, by the time they finished that, it was over 400 villages have completely removed. And then Human Rights Watch has all, through satellites, has pinpointed where they have destroyed. This very strategic removal of villages. You can see the fire, as you saw earlier picture, they are setting the houses on fire. So these complete villages, over 400 villages were completely removed. According to reports, 735,000 people have moved in the time frame of 2 weeks, 14 days. That was described as world's largest movement of population within that given time frame. That never happened. 735,000 people moving in 2 weeks from their country, Myanmar, to Bangladesh. As of today, we have a lot of refugees, Iraq, Syria, many other countries, but this is the most condensed, most crowded refugee camps in the world, the most concentrated refugee camp per square miles. Here you go, Bangladesh, southern Bangladesh, 735,000. Then now, later on, more people came, 800,000, close to 1 million people cramped into this small area of Bangladesh. It's all the refugees, Rohingya refugees, were driven out. Children major victims. In nearly 1 million population, about 55% of this refugee population is children. There's the father, mother, baby. They were shot by the Myanmar military. They're fleeing to safety. And there's reports, many reports of throwing children on fire through burning homes. Take all measures to prevent genocide. You know, we achieve a lot of things, we get a lot of things at press comps, and you'll see in the news a lot of turbulence, a lot of activities. But if we do not sustain that, that dies down. People lose interest and become old story. And then it takes a long time to get the speed back to. So that's why we and all international community must sustain this momentum that should not die down. We want nothing more than living together peacefully in Burma. Thank you very much.
We really appreciate the chance to participate in this conference. It's an important and frightening time with various situations around the world threatening to be genocides, as we're hearing or already are. It is a founding principle for Jamaat, Jews and Muslims and allies acting together. One of them that we have is just never again. Our Jewish members know all too well about the Holocaust and what we've heard about. Our Muslim members see our brethren under attack in all the various places we'll be talking about today. And we also are seeing all over the place, here and elsewhere, incidents of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia that are of major concern to us. We want to do something about it. Jamaat was founded a little over 3 years ago. We sprang from an organization called JIDS, the Jewish Islamic Dialogue Society. People would get together once a month and have a lot of discussions about issues of interest. And we've also, the JIDS and other organizations, started a annual summit of rabbis and imams once a year, and they've been held in December. The one in December 2016, right after our election, people really started to get concerned about not just talking, let's do something about it. So at that summit, it was asked, all the synagogues and mosques that participated in it, were asked to bring two people and participate in this new organization. And that's how we got started. We've been meeting ever since and trying to do things. What have we done? We have been trying to stand up in various international and domestic problems or for issues where problems have occurred. On issues of mutual concern, we've marched on with our flags and banners for Jamaat on the March for Our Lives, the Families Belong Together march, the Close the Camps. We participated in environmental initiatives. We've done joint training sessions on how to
joint training sessions just on how to deal with people of different views. And most recently, and probably one of the more active things we've done, is we formed a rapid response committee. And that has been both for issues, things that have come up right away, attacks against Jews, against Muslims, is one thing, and trying to respond to it. Also some longer term issues that we've been trying to look at. We responded, we haven't had a presentation on, and a statement that we prepared after President Trump talked about to all the 4 congressional members of the squad on go back to where you came from. We did a statement that was for the record on the, just before the hearing for the, on the Muslim ban and for the No Ban Act. That is the congressional measure that we are going to try to deal with this situation. And we signed on to a statement relating to Kashmir that Mike and other groups had worked on. We try to sign on to other people's statements when we can. And most recently, Walter Ruby, who we'll be hearing from shortly on another project, but he co-authored a article, an op-ed was just published in Inside Arabia that deals with all the issues we're talking about today on how Jews and Muslims need to stand up for each other on issues such as the Rohingya in Burma and the Uyghurs in China and Kashmir and India, and as well as on anti-Semitic and Islamophobic actions. And it's a great article if you get a chance to see it in Inside Arabia. I can tell you the next thing we're about to be working on, and this is something it's going to be in response to something we understand is going to happen tomorrow, which is that we understand that the Trump administration will announce the expansion of the former Muslim ban to 7 more countries. This one is not all Muslim countries, so it's going to be harder to argue, probably, not that credible to say this is another Muslim ban, but what it does is it will pretty much ban, and there'll be certain categories of visas from these 7 different countries, allegedly because of lack of data or something. But what we're going to be saying, I anticipate, is that it's one thing, and it's a horrible thing to ban people from coming based on their religion. It's just as bad to ban people based on their nationality without a real basis for it. And that is really, they're chipping one by one at all the principles that made America great. And we're going to try to say what we can about it. So, we want some help. We're hoping that any of you, we're a new organization, we really can use help from anyone who's interested, and please contact us if you are. We have, happy to say there are 5 of our executive directors of Jamaat. 4 of us are here today, Ibrahim and Walter and Andra will be hearing from. So we'd love to hear from you if you'd like to join us, and we would like to help you all on statements that you do, and some of the things we've already been hearing about. We will try to be there for you, and that's the whole purpose of our organization. Ibrahim wants to say a little bit too.
Good evening, everyone. I am back to this area after 15 years, where I was an international student and a volunteer in interfaith activities. An observation that I've been making since my arrival after such a long time, making a very interesting route, a full circle across the globe in Israel, Iraqi Kurdistan, and Japan, is that I see interfaith efforts much more established, much more mainstream, much more welcome, yet not without challenges. So interfaith efforts begin with ceremonial exchanges, gestures, and which reaches a certain threshold and takes us to a second phase of more in-depth dialogue, where we bring in scholars, clergy, discover similarities, enjoy doing so, and also differences, which we should also be enjoying. And then we reach another threshold, which is very difficult to go beyond. from shared understanding, established dialogue, continuous dialogue, to shared action, joint action. So what I commend Jamaat and what I feel motivated to be part of it is that this is an initiative that has moved to this third phase of joint action, not only for the parties of the dialogue, Muslims and Jews, but that has great benefits in the long run for the wider society as well. So that's the work, that's the nature of this initiative we are talking about, and we welcome all those who want to be part of that. Thank you.
And I'm here today to talk about my own work, which was that I just finished helping another living Holocaust survivor, whose name is Michael Edelstein, to write his memoirs together with my brother Dan Ruby. And so we've written a book called Live Another Day: How I Survived the Holocaust and Realized the American Dream. And it's going to be published in this coming summer, probably in July of 2020. But in the meantime, Dan and I have put up a multimedia website, which is www.liveanotherdaybook.com. It's like one word, liveanotherdaybook.com, which gives viewers entree to the people, the places, the sights, and the sounds of Michael's fascinating life, and allows them also to share their names with us and their contact info if they're interested in purchasing a book when the time comes. So again, it's www.liveanotherdday.com. Let me just tell you a little bit about the book and the project and why I think it's relevant to what we're doing today. Live Another Day is a phrase, the name of the book, that Michael's father repeated to him every evening during the 2 years that they were hunted animals in the Western Ukraine, being hunted by the Nazis as they were in bunkers and in abandoned houses, encouraging him to just stay alive. He said, "You live through this day, live another day." And that was one of the motivating factors for Michael to keep going on. So the book tells his life story, his tenacious story of survival against astronomical odds, hiding from the Nazis and their local collaborators between the ages of 10 and 13. That's how old he was when all this was happening. In bunkers and in abandoned houses in and around his hometown of Skala Podolsk, which is in western Ukraine. That's one half of the book. The other half of the book is his subsequent saga of redemption, emigrating to America, building a new family, and realizing great success eventually as a roofer and then as a real estate magnate in New York City. So as I said, he's still alive, Michael is, but unfortunately he's had a couple of strokes, and it's impossible for him to come out here and tell you his story himself. So that's really where I come in, and my brother out on the West Coast is doing the same thing. So just a few very quick anecdotes just to give you a flavor of it. The book starts it starts at the beginning of his life, but very quickly when the Nazis have come and they gather all the Jews in the town of Skala. About 2,000 Jews are on this the main square, and they put barbed wire around it. And little Michael, who's then 10 years old, slips under the wire and bolts, and there's two Nazis chasing them with guns, shooting, I believe. And Michael manages to rush into a barn. He goes around a couple corners into a barn under a hayloft, and he survives. He gets away. But that's just the very beginning of the story, because over the next 19 months, there's several times where he's actually apprehended together with his father or separate, taken into custody, and manages to escape again and again due to his grit, cunning, survival, and just incredible luck. And he and his father managed to be among less than 75 or 80 Jews out of the original 2,000. Just that handful survived the ensuing 19 months until the liberation by the Soviet Red Army, living under hellish conditions, staying alive by eating berries, mushrooms, and food scraps. And in this, on the website, which you can go to right today, you'll meet, everyday local people, Ukrainians, who were really several heroic figures. One of them was named Nikolai Getman, a peasant who smuggled Michael and his father out of a sealed ghetto on his farm wagon. So Nikolai came with a farm wagon. He put Michael beside him as though he is his son, and the father was under the hay, Michael's father, and he smuggled them out of the ghetto. And a few days after he got them out, the Nazis liquidated the ghetto and killed everybody else who was there. And there was Olenka Kovaleshin, who risked her life to provide Michael and his family with food and clothing. But we also, on the other side, we meet many other local people, mostly Ukrainians, who closed their doors and their hearts to their former Jewish neighbors, trying desperately to stay alive. A few of whom actively collaborated with the Nazis, like the police chief Ramboshka, who hunted Jews down personally and murdered many of them to please his Nazi masters and also to get rich, to loot their property and so forth. So in Live Another Day, and this is what I think is very fascinating about this book, Michael makes the case that the survival skills that he honed as a child are the same ones he used later in life to realize great success in business in New York. He says that after what he endured between the ages of 10 and 13, that everything else in life that he accomplished was really a piece of cake. So he managed to build a real estate empire worth several $100 million, which is what he has today, starting from nothing, starting from being penniless, due to many of those skills. But he's also did so as a person ready to cut tenants' breaks, to offer some of them extensions on rent and foregoing rent increases if they were unable to pay the difference. He has helped financially people dealing with drug addiction and cancer, and he supports food banks in Israel because he remembers in his own bones what it was like in his own life to be alone, desperately hungry and cold. He remains a modest man who never promoted himself for his story. He rarely accepts honors despite giving millions in charity and philanthropy. He often said that his greatest accomplishments in life came during his childhood, and everything he did as an adult was child's play in comparison. For me personally, it's been an enormous privilege to know him and to have the precious opportunity to share his story with the world. Thank you very much.
I'm going to talk to you about how we can tell when genocide is going to happen. Because Genocide Watch's job is to try to predict, prevent, and stop, and then, if it happens, punish genocide. So we've been very involved in all of those aspects of genocide. We were the ones who, for instance, I wrote the UN resolutions that created the Rwandan Tribunal. And I also was the one who wrote the UN resolutions that created the Cambodian Tribunal and wrote the rules for that. So that's punishment, but it's too late if you have to punish. So the whole issue, really, is prevention. So what I want to talk to you about tonight is how we can tell when genocide is going to happen. The reason I can talk about this is because in 1980, my wife and I went to Cambodia to set up the relief program there, right after the Khmer Rouge had been overthrown. What we saw changed my life. What I realized was I had to spend the rest of my life working to end genocide. When we talked to the survivors and when we walked through the mass graves, certain patterns began to emerge in the Cambodian genocide that looked a lot like the Holocaust. I had studied the Holocaust. I had studied the Armenian genocide. I had studied other genocides. And what I saw in Cambodia was exactly the same pattern. Out of that, I formulated a model of how genocide works, how it comes about. It's called the 10 stages of genocide. Now, it's not a linear model. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because most of these stages occur simultaneously. But it is a logical model that helps us understand how genocide comes about. The first stage in every genocide is classification. You classify into us versus them. Classification is crucial because without it you couldn't have genocide, because you couldn't even have separate groups. So the first stage, for instance, in the Holocaust was to classify who was Jewish. In the case of Cambodian genocide, it was to classify who were the so-called new people, that is, the people from the cities. Those people were to be slaughtered. The so-called base people, the people from the countryside, were to be left alone. They were to form the main Khmer Rouge cadres. What we are seeing again here with the Rohingya genocide is the attempt to literally take the citizenship away from over 1 million people in Myanmar. That's classification. When you take away citizenship, you also take away rights. There are no civil or human rights if you take away citizenship. That's why it's so crucial that citizenship be part of every person's human rights. Just to get a little close to home, just think about what it means, what we're doing on our southern border. By denying citizenship, by denying even the chance of citizenship, by denying asylum to people who are coming into our country, seeking asylum, we are classifying them as the other, as those who are them, not us. The second stage in every genocide is symbolization. In symbolization, it means we give a name to those people, or we actually sometimes will even make them wear certain symbols. The most common one, of course, that we know about is the yellow star that the Nazis made people wear. In Khmer Rouge, Cambodia, I discovered that in the eastern zone of Cambodia, a zone that was considered too close to Vietnam, the Khmer Rouge decided to evacuate the zone and literally kill everyone in it.
Now, could you speak in the microphone?
I will try. I'm a teacher. I'm sorry. I hate these lecterns. I'm sorry.
No, we can hear very well.
I'm sure you can.
But we want to make sure we get the voice on the
Yeah, well, anyway, I'm sure the microphone will pick it up. The main point I'm making is this. Symbolization is important because it allows us to think about who is the other, who is the them. If we can say, these are Jews, therefore, we consider them the other. Or if we can say, these are Rohingya, or in fact, even if we deny their own name, we don't let them be called Rohingya. If we call them Bengalis instead, that's exactly what Myanmar has done. In the case of the Assamese right now, the Indian government is attempting to do a census of all the people in Assam in order to determine who is a foreigner and who is a, quote, native Indian. And what that means is anybody who can't prove that they were in India before 1971 is a foreigner. Well, guess what that means? It means they can be expelled. Does that sound a little bit like what happened to the Rohingya? Yes, it happens to be a lot like what happened to the Rohingya. And that is why we have India at the top of our risk list right now. We think India is in serious trouble. And it's not just in Assam, it's also in Kashmir, where an autonomous state, a Muslim state in India, the only majority Muslim state in India, has been denied its autonomy now, has, in other words, the protections that Muslims had in Kashmir have now been stripped away. And so it allows the Modi government, which is a Hindu nationalist government, it allows them to essentially take military control of Kashmir. 600,000 Indian Army troops are in Kashmir right now. 600,000. They've cut off the internet. Most of the main leaders in the Muslim community in Kashmir are under arrest and in jail. This is a tyranny in the making. In fact, it could really turn into a genocide. What we're worried about in Assam, of course, is that it will turn into a genocide because they have now released the results of their census. So people know these people are foreigners. In India, you don't even have to have the government to enforce a lot of these kinds of classifications. You can have mobs do it. And that has happened again and again in India's history, in which literally mobs of Hindus or mobs of Muslims have killed the other group. In this case, the real danger is from Hindu mobs. Okay, so that's the second stage. The third stage is always discrimination, in which the group that's the other is discriminated against by the officials in the society. They're not allowed to get jobs as teachers or government officials. One of the first things the Nazis did was to fire all the Jewish professors and all of the Jewish civil servants. That very same thing will happen anytime somebody's classified as a foreigner. Similarly, that was what happened in Myanmar, where you had essentially no rights for Rohingya. They couldn't get health care, they couldn't get government jobs or any kind of that sort of rights. They were, in 2012, literally herded into concentration camps inside the Rakhine province of Myanmar. There's still 100,000 people, Rohingya, in the Sidhway concentration camp. So what we've got there is a massive kind of discrimination against Rohingya. There's still 600,000 Rohingya in Myanmar. Now, you just heard from Mr. Wadeen, who's one of my heroes, by the way. The International Court of Justice, and we've been working on this case since 2012, the International Court of Justice has just handed down one of its strongest rulings in history, saying to the Myanmar government, stop committing genocide. Now, this is just the provisional stage of the case. Boy, they'd never do that in a provisional level of the case. But they have literally swept away all the defenses that Myanmar has. So we're hoping, of course, for a really major victory here. But remember this, when there is discrimination, it also means that people directly suffer. That's what's happened to the Rohingya. Over 1 million have left and gone to Bangladesh. As Mr. Wadeen said, there are also 120,000 in Malaysia and so forth. What is going to happen to these people? They're in huge refugee camps in Cox's Bazar. We can't wait for the International Court of Justice, which may take 3 years to decide this case. We have to really get an international relief program going to help these people now. The fourth stage of genocide, and this is where you really get to the downward spiral that results in actual genocide, is dehumanization. Dehumanization is where the people who are planning the genocide start calling the other group cockroaches or vermin or a cancer in the society or criminals. This type of dehumanization allows people who are about to commit killings from feeling any compunction about murder. Because if you kill somebody who's not even a human being, it's not murder. That is why the dehumanization stage is so crucial to genocide. The Nazis, of course, did that very clearly when they called the Jews vermin. in Rwanda, a country I've lived in, they called the Tutsis cockroaches. Well, you still see it happening right now in Assam, where the Home Minister of India himself is calling the Muslims there, that is the Bengali Muslims, and there are over 4 million of them there. He's calling them termites. The fifth stage is organization. See, genocide is always organized because it's a group crime. It's not something where you just walk into a restaurant and shoot up some people. You know, this is something planned. It is something where you get, for instance, you train a militia to carry it out, or you even have your own army carry out genocide. And most genocides are carried out by states. It is a state crime. In fact, that's why this case was taken to the International Court of Justice. In fact, I wrote part of that brief that went there. Because that is a state versus state court. It's not like the International Criminal Court where you can actually try individuals. It's more powerful than the International Criminal Court because it could order, for instance, Myanmar to pay reparations that would compensate the Rohingya who are out there in those refugee camps to the tune of billions of dollars. It could order them to pay Bangladesh for the expenses they've had in taking care of those refugees. And when the International Court of Justice speaks, its judgments have to be, literally have to be, enforced by the UN Security Council. There's no veto. I mean, that's international law, and I have taught that for many years. The ICJ is actually higher than the Security Council in terms of authority in this kind of a case. Now, what I want to do then is just give you a quick summary of the rest of the stages. As soon as you have organization, you have hate groups, you have armies and so forth, you then can have polarization in which the officials will claim that if you're not with us, you're against us, and they will try to isolate and rule out the moderate middle, because the moderate middle are the people who can do the most to prevent a genocide. That's why the first people to be killed in every single genocide or arrested and put in prison are people from the perpetrator's own group who might stand in the way. That's why the Nazis first arrested the liberal priests, the social democrats, the communists, anybody who could oppose the Nazi party. They put them in Dachau first. It is why in the Rwandan genocide, the first people to be killed were the moderate Hutus. The prime minister, for instance, who was a friend of mine, the head of the Supreme Court, who was also a dear friend of mine. So polarization is another crucial thing. Now think about that into our own terms here in this country. I believe that's where we are. I think we have a polarized country. And I'm really quite worried about it. I'm not predicting that we're going to have a genocide because I think we do have checks and balances in this country that will prevent it. And we have, I think, a military that would never do it. But what I also have seen is we do have hate groups. We have militia groups. We have people who will fill the area around the Capitol building of Richmond with gun-toting militias. So if you think it's impossible in this country, think again. We are in trouble here.
Thank you, Doctor.
Now, the stages that follow are the ones that really lead into the genocide itself. Preparation, where the planning is done. The most famous case, of course, is the Wannsee Conference, where the Nazis literally planned the Holocaust. That's a very famous, there's a movie about it called Conspiracy that I recommend to you, taken from the transcripts from that conference. The planning of a genocide is something always happens. There was a group called the Akazu in Rwanda who did that. We've got plenty of evidence that, in fact, what's happened to the Rohingya was planned. And it's clearly being planned in India that they are going to do something about these Muslims who are in Assam. Now, the next stage is persecution. Persecution, of course, takes many forms. It can be torture, it can be arbitrary detention, arrests without cause, it can be disappearances, it can be murders, it can be actual trial massacres. Trial massacres are very common because what they're for, this has happened, for instance, in Rwanda, where they literally massacred a village of 3,000 people the year before that the 1994 genocide began. And when the international community did nothing and said nothing, they knew they could get away with it. Preparation, persecution, and then extermination. Extermination is the 9th stage. It's the actual genocide. And it doesn't have to be simply putting people into death camps. It can also mean using machetes. It can mean putting people, running them out into the desert, the way the Armenian genocide occurred. It can mean making them leave for Bangladesh. Finally, the final stage is denial. And denial begins right at the beginning, all the way through. It goes all the way through the genocide, and it may continue for 100 years after the genocide, just the way the Turks are continuing to deny the genocide they committed against the Armenians, and the way this country is still denying the genocide it committed against our Native Americans, against the slaves during our slave trade, and that has happened in every genocide. I will leave you at that, because what I hope I've done is tell you we are in danger right here. Not necessarily nearly the danger that we've seen already in Assam, in Kashmir, and in many other places in this world. But genocide is still with us.
Good evening, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here and taking part in today's multi-faith remembrance of the Holocaust. As a Uyghur, I take part in International Holocaust Remembrance Day for many reasons. Uyghurs join with voices of conscience around the world to say never forget. We join with the voices of conscience around the world to say never again. We join in the prayers of all people for an end to suffering and evil in today's world. The Chinese government's industrial-scale campaign of repression against the Uyghur people in East Turkestan is now being called a genocide, a cultural genocide. It is being called a cold genocide. It is a disaster for an entire people, 15 million of us, that has not been seen since the end of Second World War. The Washington Post editorial board has been extremely alert and sharp in its analysis in alarm about what has been happening for last 3 years in East Turkestan against the Uyghur people. These editorials give a very clear idea of the crisis. The Uyghur region is covered by a blanket of secrecy. The United Nations has been refused access. Journalists who go there are harassed. But the scale of the repression is too large to hide. The extreme nature of the horrifying state actions to crush the Uyghur people are too shocking to ignore. That's why Uyghurs in diaspora have been reflecting on the Holocaust for many months. Like everyone else, we know the Holocaust is a unique period of unique evil. We feel intimately its importance as a time in history like no other. we agree that it has a deep meaning for all of mankind. But Uyghurs also feel that the Holocaust has a deep meaning for the Uyghurs. That meaning is very direct and profound in current crisis. Chinese authorities have been violated Uyghurs' cultural, linguistic, and religious rights, marginalizing them in their own homeland. But now, Uyghurs are being rounded up on an unprecedented scale. These ethnic internment camps hold more than 15% of the Uyghur population in indefinite detention. Another 2 million people, according to estimates, are forced to attend day and evening study sessions. We can see from satellite images that 800-year-old mosques are destroyed. Uyghur cemeteries are being bulldozed. Documents that were recently leaked tell us more. One policy document says that the government plans to have 500,000 Uyghur children in full-time boarding schools in the near future. The 400 pages documents published by the New York Times include policy documents admitting a plan to arbitrarily detain thousands of people in each local district who have committed no crime except being Uyghurs and being Muslims. By a miracle, there is also now ample testimony about the camps themselves and the forced labor facilities from family members and former detainees who have managed to reach safety in the West. They described overcrowded conditions, a starvation diet, torture, death, unknown medications, physical abuse and rape, and many hours of intense ideological indoctrination sessions. These are designed to erase their memories, their culture, their identity, and train them to say, I believe in the Communist Party, I don't believe in God. In the last 4 months, we have learned that many people have been transferred from the ideological torture camps. They are mostly being sent to 2 places. Some are forced to sign contracts to work at factories where they are paid very little, if anything. They are not allowed to go home or can only go home 1 or 2 days per week. The government is subsidizing more factories to take advantage of this slave labor. This kind of vast government-organized slave labor is familiar to us only under a few regimes in history, regimes that are considered the worst and most murderous regimes in history. But it is happening now in 21st century against the Uyghur people in East Turkestan. And the goods are being sold in the global marketplace. The Chinese government continues to claim that it is carrying out a counterterrorism campaign. This is nonsense. Putting more than 1.5 million people in detention camps has nothing to do with legitimate security measures. Our religious identity as Muslims and our ethnicity is the focus of the Chinese government's brutal treatment of the Uyghurs, Kazakhs, and other Muslim minorities in East Turkestan. Uyghurs outside China are frustrated, depressed, and traumatized due to their inability to help loved ones back home, or even to get any information about their whereabouts and their well-being. We urge the Congress to act immediately to pass the Uyghur Human Rights Policy Act. We urge the President to impose global Magnitsky sanctions on the perpetrators. We also urge the American government to take a much stronger leadership role at the United Nations, Clearly, strong youth leadership is required. Otherwise, governments will remain silent, even though there is now worldwide condemnation by human rights groups and daily reporting in the media. In fact, we believe that it is a matter of UN Security Council. A number of experts, such as law professor Jeremy Cohen, have concluded that this is a case of crimes against humanity. I want to end by stressing again that the future could be much worse. As Professor Ryan Term said in the congressional testimony in July 2018, mass murder and genocide do not look like impossible outcomes. I want to pay tribute to my fellow speakers who spoke, especially Rohingya, on the Rohingya crisis, Rohingya ethnic cleansing. Their courage in the face of terrible crimes is an inspiration for all of us. And also I want to extend my special appreciation to all my Jewish, Muslim, and Christian brothers and sisters who are part of the movement of universal human rights. Just one minute. In May 2019, I want to especially note prominent intellectuals, including some who are Jewish themselves, who are raising their voices to say never again for the Uyghur people. In May 2019, Anne Applebaum wrote a column saying very plain in the title, "In China, never again is happening again." In November, Fred Hyatt, editorial page editor of Washington Post, wrote this: "In China, every day is Kristallnacht." Jewish World Watch, a group based in California, has rallied action under the banner "Never Again. Jews support Uyghurs against new genocide." Thank you so much.
Good evening, Shalom. Thank you very much for the organizers, Dr. Mike, for putting this together. Listening to everybody over here, I don't know if Kashmir's story is different when it comes to genocide, killing, loss of life. But I want to come back to one thing before I start going forward. I know we're not supposed to talk politics here, but if you look at everything that happens, genocide starts with politics. It's the hunger of the people to gain power, to gain control. They start the process of demonizing others. And this is what leads to genocide eventually. It's not because of just somebody woke up one good morning, I'm going to take a gun today and just start shooting in this one just because it's the day I want to shoot. No. Based on a systematic process. What is happening in India, what's happening in Kashmir today did not start today. It started before independence of India. BJP, RSS was not born when Modi was born. It was born way before Modi was born. Modi has just become a face of it. It's executing its agenda through Modi. Kashmir is landlocked. Nature has preserved the mountains all around. And the only channel that was to come out was through India. And India made sure that it gets blocked. Media block out for the last 3 decades. We know what's happening in Rohingya, we know what's happening in Uyghur, we know what's happening in other places. We don't know anything what's happening in Kashmir. Take a look at last 6 months. Internet, complete shutdown. Think about the people that are outside of Kashmir who have families and loved ones whose parents or brothers or siblings are sitting in that valley under curfew, no food, no drink, nothing, no communication, not even knowing if their parent or their family 2 miles down is dead or alive. Imagine that. We say we are one people. We need to feel each other's pain. We need to feel each other's hurt. The question is, can we really? And if we can, are we ready to do what it takes as a result to alleviate that pain, to remove that pain from those people? When we face these governments that are sitting out there, draconian governments for a lack of a better word, Dr. Stern, you were talking about what's happening in the United States. What happened, being a Virginian, knowing what happened last weekend down in Richmond, and what was happened before that, 3 people arrested, where are we as a nation heading? What happens if Trump loses the election tomorrow? Are we going to witness a genocide right here in the United States? We go to the Congress, we go to the Senate, we ask them to pass bills and laws and regulations to ban, to put embargoes on the countries, but those embargoes are based on political interests. Today, when you write a letter to Senator, ask him to condemn India, the response you get, we're going to do everything, but we're going to have a relationship with India. Because there are political interests. There are national interests. Killing a few thousand, killing a few million, it's okay. It's justified under those political interests. We are insignificant when it comes to those political interests because our system is not the system of morals and ethics. It has changed, whether you realize it or not. If we want to change the things, we have to start looking at the grassroots again. We are feeding the tree that is poisoned all the way to the leaves. We have to fix that tree again and drain that poison out of it to see a world that we all aspire for, a peaceful world. Today, when we look at those 9 stages or 10 stages of genocide, at some point there is demonization or calling people termites and stuff like that. Well, Muslims are called terrorists. It's an easy license to kill. How many of you remember the James Bond movie? License to kill. You want to kill a Muslim? Where is he? He was a terrorist. Shadak. Done. Nobody's going to ask you any questions. And you might as well get a medal also because you killed a terrorist. Happened in Kashmir for the last 3 decades. I was raised in Kashmir. 1989, when this whole thing started, I was in Kashmir. I came to the United States in 1992. But before I came to the United States, I have seen people tied to a grenade and blown in the middle of the road. I have seen through the bodies of the people because the bullet holes you could see through. I have hardly any friends left in Kashmir who grew up with me today. And the person who started, we say that, these are terrorists who started this. There were 5 people who started this whole movement in Kashmir. It was not because they were terrorists. It was because there were no employment available for them. 1984, when Maqbool Butt was hanged, followed by, there was about the Golden Temple event happened, 84, then followed with Indira Gandhi's assassination. These were 3 events that actually turned the clock in Kashmir. Really, people got to kind of, whoa, what's happening here? There was never an incident of religious, any kind of discrimination in Kashmir. My best friend, even today, is a Christian. I remember growing up, we used to sit together. Yeah, there are not, people will say, Christians in Kashmir? Yes, there are. I am a student of a church of Northern India, a missionary school, Tyndall Biscuit School. I grew up saying the Bible hymns every morning. That's what my teaching was. I was not taught in a madrasa to learn to hate others. We used to sing. I remember going to my friend's house, take a small guitar and sing nice prayers before we had the dinner. We used to eat from the same plate, same bowl, never thought of that you are a Hindu, I'm a Muslim, you are a Sikh, you are something else. No, we were all one. Until that external force that came in that told us, no, there is something else you guys want to know. Yes, we always as Muslims had inclination towards Pakistan, and India had, Hindus had towards India. It was only during the cricket season. The rest of the year, nobody really cared. And even that cricket fever was very short-lived. It's basically for those 30 seconds when you have a sixer from one team or the other, that was basically hyped up. What happened? Going back to your whole analogy, India pushed in an evil pill into Kashmir. divide, conquer, create the enemy so that we can justify killing. When Jagmohan was sent to Kashmir, I'm not going to get to everything. Jagmohan was sent to Kashmir, January 19, 1990. The very next day, there was the biggest massacre in the history of Kashmir, the Gao Kadal massacre, we call it. 160 people died who were just going through a demonstration. As soon as they crossed over the bridge, on the other side of the bridge, there was army waiting with guns ready to shoot, and they were just 160 people dead. Next thing was going into the houses, raping women, killing men. When a child or a husband sees his mother, sister, daughter raped in front of his eyes, what do you think his next instinct is going to be if he does survive? Revenge. That's any human being. That's nothing terrorism to do with there. That's human nature. The only thing these people wanted then, those 5 people became 500, became 5,000 within days because of those atrocities. Now everybody was trying to look for a gun because they were not really worried about their own lives anymore, because they had seen how their sister was gang raped, how their mother was gang raped, how their daughter was gang raped in front of their eyes, and they were made to watch it. They were forced to watch it. This continued. I know my friends who were just regular people, picked up from their homes, and very next day, their parents found them cut off into pieces, sewed together. They were not terrorists. I survived because I was pushed out of Kashmir by my family. I know when the army cordon used to happen in our neighborhoods, I used to jump off the window, cross the river, which was right behind my house, and just run to the next neighborhood where there was no cordon by the army. I remember when our neighborhood, there was a shooting that happened in our neighborhood. My family called for the fire station because one of the tactics the army used to use, as soon as there was a firing from any neighborhood, they would spray gunpowder and they will light up the neighborhood. They will burn it. My parents called the fire brigade that they're getting ready to do this, you better be here. They stopped the fire brigade. They said, who called you? They said, so and so. We were one of the very few well-off families in Kashmir, very well-known families. Our business was manufacturing silk. We were the second largest after the government of India, after the government of Kashmir. So by that, our name was very well-known. And we had a very good clientele within the army, within the defense industry. They used to come to our shop, and home was very together, so they used to come. So the Jawans of the army find out who this is. They come to my house, drag my uncles and my 80-year-old grandfather from his bed, grab his neck, drag him out to the street, pour gasoline on all of them, and getting ready to light them up. When a major comes in and says, what are you doing? He says, these guys. I said, who are they? So they are these guys. He is one of our customers. He said, no, they are good people. Let them go. Broke all the glass and made my mother, my grandmother, my aunts and uncles walk, because we have a joint family system, walk on that broken glass. That was one side of the story. Other side of the story, militants wanted to come and ask for a shelter for a night, and my father denied. They put a gun to his head. We're going to shoot you. My mother screamed. It says, they took my dad. You need to give us 4 crore rupees, which is I think almost 44 million or something like that. And you have to give us that much money to release him. So you're caught between a hard rock and a stone. Where are you going to go? And then you have the army, which has the law that is allowing them to go shoot as you please. And they get rewarded for killing. Can you believe that? You have a military force that gets rewarded for killing. Kashmir is not a genocide that's going to happen. Kashmir is a genocide that's happening. The world is not able to see because there's a smoke screen that's being put in between. For us to see and hear those cries, we have to go beyond those mountains, the Himalayas. We have to actually go and see. We cannot hear those cries because India has a media blackout. 160, 180 days, 190 now, complete media blackout. I urge all of you, try to find out more. Try to find out more. Engage in whatever you can. Yes, politics is the ultimate solution, but there is a human factor in the meantime. The delaying means some lives are lost. When I talk to my family, they're like, we are done with this. We just want to live now. Because they don't know who's going to knock at their door next and come, and who from the family is going to survive and who is not. My Hindu friends, my Pandit friends, it's not a Muslim battle, it's not a Pandit battle, it's a Kashmiri battle. Together, we are stronger. Divided, we have both suffered and will continue to suffer. We have to recognize each other's pain and sufferings. If we do not recognize, if we cherish when we hear somebody is getting killed in Kashmir, we enjoy in Delhi or Jammu, it's not going to help, because tomorrow it might be you. You don't want somebody in Kashmir to enjoy that. Join the hands, become the force that becomes indivisible. Join and become the force that can fight against Modi. Otherwise, we will both be lost in dust, and only history will remember us. Thank you very much.
This is what reported today, Economist Journal. And fascism is not dead with the burial of Hitler and also Mussolini, and it's still there around us. And they come up with the different shapes, different names, different acronyms, and they come up, and I have seen few of them up here. There are many more. Many of them are fringe elements at this time, but there is one which has become the power. They took over a nation, that is RSS and BJP in India, led by Modi. Now, what is the Rashtriya Swayam Seva Sangam, RSS, is the organization with the Hindutva nationalism. And they have, the political arm is the BJP of India, that is, Modi is running that party at this time. What is Hindutva nationalism? As we know, in a perfect nationalism, a group of people good together, they are cohesive people, they celebrate that diversity. But nationalism of Hindutva is that India belongs to Hindus. That's what it is. Let me show you what it is. Hindutva, RS and BJP are maligning Hinduism. On the other hand, as the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and ISIS did to Islam and Muslims, that's exactly what they're doing now. Shashi Tharoor is a diplomat and currently a parliamentarian. He says Hindutva is an insult to Hinduism. He himself is a Hindu. Now, you have to Golwalkar. He is the pioneer and the ideologue of Rashtriya Swayam Seva Sangam. I want to read what happened. It's there. Modi has written a book in 2007. The book name is Beam of Light in Gujarati. And it has been translated into English. And in that book, he described Golwalkar as the, in English, it says, the man, the guru worthy worshipping. Punyaya guru. That's what that term used. That's what they have said. Guru has to be worthy of worship. And most of, why is that? Any help? Anybody can adjust this?
If you can read it, that's fine.
Okay. Then what he has written is in his book. The Golwalkar has written the book called Be Our Nation Defined. It says, to keep up with the purity of the race and its culture, Germany showed the world by purging the country of Semitic race, the Jews. And it continues, the race pride at its highest has been manifested. And then he concludes, a good lesson for us, Hindustan, to learn and profit from. Page 88 to 89. In other words, he is a admirer of Hitler. Narendra Modi spent most of his formative years with the RSS. And if you look at the way they salute, a modified form of Nazi salute, that's what you see. What do you expect? Yeah, this is what I said, beam of light. In his book, what do we expect from Modi, who is a follower of RSS? Then Golwalkar in page 105, it says, non-Hindus in Hindustan must either adopt the Hindu culture and language, must entertain no idea but of the glorification of Hindu culture, may stay in the country wholly subordinated to Hindu nation, claiming nothing, deserving no privileges, far less any preferential treatment, not even citizen right, and no other course for them to adopt. It is page 105, you can read that. So what are the signs of, Dr. Scranton has said a lot of it, what are the signs of ultra-nationalism India is going through? I have screenshot many newspapers in the West. And in Washington, New York Times, under Modi, Hindu nationalist surge has further divided India. American conservative, India's dark path of Hindu nationalism. United Nations Dispatch, how Narendra Modi hardline Hindu nationalism is transforming India. The foreign foreign policy, how Hindu nationalism went the mainstream. Atlantic, how Hinduism became political weapon in India. Jerusalem Post, RSS shares the fascist ideology of the Nazi party and support extreme Hindu nationalism. So, one of the signs already there, every newspaper in the world is supporting with that. It's not my own word. Second one is disdain for human right. Human right, the Human Rights Watch in New York says the government led by BJP harassed and at times persecuted activists, lawyers, human rights defenders, and journalists criticizing the authority for criticizing authorities. Draconian sedition and counterterrorism laws were used to chill the free expression. They continues, government failed to prevent, credibly investigate growing mob attack on religious minorities, marginalized communities, and critics of the government, and goes on, because a lot of time I'm not going to. They even tortured children recently by police. New York Times, as India's violence gets worse, police are accused of abusing Muslims. Now, you remember, Narendra Modi was a person non grata for United States and the Europe until he was elected to the Prime Minister of India. So another sign of fascism, identification of enemies as unifying for cause. This is from Golwalkar, Bunch of Thoughts, page 28. Christians here consider themselves as agents of the international movement. They will remain as hostiles and will have to be treated as such. So it's an enemy of the state. This is from New Yorker recently. blood and soul Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister Hindu nationalist government, has cast 200 million Muslims as internal enemies. National Catholic Reporter, India's Christians and Muslims face higher persecution since Modi's government. Her Sicily newspaper, Modi's malignant anti-Muslim vision for India is becoming a reality. Christian Post, 1,000 incidents of Christian persecution in India reported in 2014. That's the time Modi became Prime Minister. And 219 in 2019. There. BBC, the hate of the Muslims so bad for them, they don't want to include Taj Mahal in the Indian tourism booklet. It reached that level. United States Commission on Religious Freedom has refused visa for since Modi became Prime Minister. This is from there. Now, Nuremberg Law, we know what it was. That exactly he has done. He passed 2 laws, the Citizen Amendment Bill and also Amendment Act, and also National Registry of Citizens to eliminate Muslims from the country. Human Rights said, Indian government is creating legal grounds to strip millions of Muslims of fundamental right and equal access to citizenship. Sound something a few years ago it happened in Germany? This from the control of media. Modi, India journalists face bullying and criminal cases and worse. Diplomat, India's once famed press devolving into propaganda apparatus. India's media cannot speak truth to the power. Judiciary. The Economist reported it. Judges in India Supreme Court accused Chief Justice of bias. They say he assigned judges to important cases to selectively so that the right kind of decision will be coming out of Supreme Court. Supreme Court endorses right. This is from Washington Post. India's Supreme Court endorses the right-wing vision relating to Muslim to second-class citizen. This judge was killed mysteriously. They say heart attack. What happened was parents say that he had marks on his neck as choking fingers on his neck, and then another judge was appointed after he died, and then what happened? Amrita was let go free. Remember this. I don't need to read. Everybody knows what he said. Now, there's a lot of Indians in this country supporting Modi. I want including me, if you happen to see me, I want to ask you 2 questions to them. 2 questions to them. Do you support Modi? 3 questions. Do you support Modi? Yes. Then ask them, do you approve having religion as one of the determining factor for us immigration in United States? If yes, if no, ask them, why are you supporting CIA and NRC government? Second question, do you esteem and comply with First Amendment of religion and free press and peaceful assembly? As if they say yes, then why are you supporting when this is completely violated in India by Modi? So I want to keep us, everybody, including if you happen to see me in the road, ask me, hey, what do you think about Modi? And ask these 2 questions to them. Thank you.
So it's time to stand together, sustain the momentum, setting aside religious and political allegiances, and do everything we can not to just stop all this is happening and to prevent this. To that end, we must pledge. I will speak up, repeat, right? Yeah, repeat after. when there is injustice.
When there is injustice,
I will speak up
speak up.
when truth is not spoken.
When truth is not spoken,
I will do my best to make
I will do my best to make
my words and my actions mitigate conflicts.
my words and my actions mitigate conflicts.
I'll do my best to do my share
I'll do my best to do my share
in nurturing goodwill for the benefit of all.
in nurturing goodwill for the benefit of all.
I will do my share of peace work
I will do my share of peace work
without looking for others to do their share.
without looking for others to do their share.
I will do my best to respect
I will do my best to respect
the God-given uniqueness of each individual.
the God-given uniqueness of each individual.
I will do my best to live and let others live their way.
I will do my best.
I will do my best to nurture goodwill in everything I do.
To nurture goodwill in everything I do.
And blessed are the peacemakers. And now, Dr. Ghouse and I pronounce you to be the peacemaker. Your role is to mitigate conflict and nurture goodwill. Amen.